The Republican Party is in a full-blown moral collapse, and no one has been more clear-eyed or outspoken about this than George Conway. As a prominent lawyer and former Republican, he's now one of Donald Trump's most effective critics. On this episode, we discuss the state of the Republican Party, what a post-Trump GOP could look like, and what may be next for George's own political journey. But before we get into any of that, make sure you subscribe to Democracy Docket to stay informed about what you can do to protect democracy. George Conway, welcome back to Defending Democracy.
Thanks for having me once again.
It is always great having you, and I always have a million questions for you. But let me start with kind of a big picture framing question about Donald Trump and the Republican Party. Now, you know Donald Trump particularly well, better than I do and better than most people.
I mean, I know him well from having observed him for many years. I mean, I've only met him a few times.
And you know Republicans well as well. There are kind of two dominant narratives right now. The first is one that I ascribe to, which is that Donald Trump wants to be a dictator, is an authoritarian, has sycophants surrounding him in the White House and in the Department of Justice and other agencies, and they are systematically attacking democracy. So that's kind of thesis one. Thesis two is that Donald Trump is an addled old man who is frankly losing his marbles and is surrounded by people who are not particularly competent. Which is it? Is it that they are doing systematic damage to democracy, or they are sort of chasing their tails?
The answer is yes. Both statements are entirely consistent with one another. He is both an addled old man, but he's also a personality, a diseased personality who seeks total control of everything and has sycophants around him and doesn't give one rat's ass about the rule of law and the Constitution. All of the above. He is both things. He is both incompetent, addled. He could absolutely just blow himself up any day. The question is, what's the blast radius? There's nothing inconsistent between those two theses. And in fact, both theses combined in some incomprehensibly absurd way is where we are.
To say you were never Trump before there was never Trump is like an understatement. You were very early to recognize who he was, and you showed tremendous courage in breaking with your party, your former party a long time ago. Is he more dangerous the more addled he gets, or is he the less dangerous? In other words, is Trump worse for democracy now, or was he worse from democracy when you first really started, calling him out for what he is back in, 2017, in the first term?
I mean, the way I look at him is he's like some kind of battery acid. He's always been bad, but as the acid eats into more and more things, it gets more dangerous. That's the way I look at him. I mean, if I'm going to use a metaphor, I mean, essentially, he's going to get worse as he gets more frustrated, more addled, because unlike other people, he has a whole government to command. And those people are going to be the last people to defy him because their jobs, their futures, their careers, even in some cases, their liberty depends on the survival of him and whatever remains of his organization or regime after he's gone. Things are going to get worse before they get better. That's the thing that I've always, after the first couple of years, that's the thing I've always said. It's going to get worse before it gets better. I see that still being the case. I think, look, I mean, I feel better than I have felt earlier in the year because both of the last No Kings protest and because of the midterms and because of now the Epstein debacle. But that being said, that's just going to make him more and more desperate, make him more and more likely to do something to try to change the subject, e.g. Venezuela. And what exactly that's going to be, we don't know yet. It's very, very, we live in these are very, very volatile times.
You and I are recording this at kind of an interesting crossroads moment. The Epstein, he has totally lost the Epstein fight. Like the Epstein fight has been a debacle for him. I mean, the fact is, both the House and the Senate Republicans voted overwhelmingly in the Senate by unanimous consent.
Great move by Chuck there. I got to give Chuck lots of props there. He gave the Republicans a chance not to go have a recorded vote, and they just grabbed it.
And at the same time, we are watching the Donald Trump inspired mid cycle redistricting plan hit bumps in the road, both in court, but also in Democratic states fighting back. I got asked this question actually literally just before I got on, particularly around the redistricting court fights. Which is, does this mean that Donald Trump will now back away from this and sort of sue for peace? And I was like, you got to be kidding me. No, like that isn't the way he rolls. Like he will become worse. And they said, well, how could it become worse? And I said, look what happened after the 2020 election. After he lost court cases, he instigated a violent insurrection in the nation's capital.
It's like Jurassic Park, right? Or one of those Jurassic Park movies. I haven't seen all of them, but they do learn the velociraptors or whatever they are. They kind of learn how to turn doorknobs, and he kind of knows how to turn lots of doorknobs, and he's going to keep trying to turn doorknobs until he gets through. So, like me with the metaphors today, I don't know.
Some of the absolute best analysis about the Democratic Party, its strengths, its weaknesses, the Republican Party and its weaknesses are frankly coming not from longstanding Democrats like myself, but people like you, people like Sarah Longwell, Tim Miller at the Bulwark, former Republicans. So what is it you all know about the Democratic Party and about politics that those of us who have been part of it don't?
I don't profess to have any expertise on the Democratic Party, and I don't think I know anybody who really does. I think the reason why people look to us, if you want to call us the Bulwark types or the Never Trump types, is we don't have any loyalties to anybody at this point, right? We're not afraid of saying what we think is true because we have a political establishment that, we don't quite want to rub the wrong ways. So we just lay it out there. And if we're wrong, fine. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I do think it's just, I think with me, to speak of my own personal experience, I think it's just the liberating aspect of, not having to toe a line.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I've been around a lot of politicians in my career, probably, thousands at this point, senators, members of Congress, governors, presidents. Every so often you meet one you can just sense they are like not afraid. I'll give you an example. One of the most impressive politicians I've ever been around, elected officials, was Bob Kerrey, senator from Nebraska. And I knew him when he was the senator from Nebraska.
He's a good man, a good man.
Yeah, and the thing about him is, as you know, he won the Congressional Medal of Honor, lost a leg in combat in Vietnam. You could tell by being around him, even though he was representing, even at that point, what was a pretty red state, was not quite as red as it is now. But even though he was representing a red state, like he just was not afraid. Like he wasn't afraid he was going to say the wrong thing. He wasn't afraid he was going to be caught in a gotcha moment. He was just totally comfortable with himself, and he would say what was on his mind, and he would speak candidly, and there was just this calm about him. Like the worst thing that will happen to me will never happen to me by being embarrassed in the US Senate, right? He just was not worried about it. And I sense that when I watch you talk about American politics, when I watch you talk about Donald Trump, frankly, when, I watched some of the stuff you posted on No King's Day, you were more full-throatedly unafraid to be critical of Donald Trump than, frankly, a lot of Democrats who feel like we want to stay within sort of bounds of, not being viewed as overboard.
Well, I mean, I guess that's right. I think that's true. I mean, maybe if someone were elected official, they wouldn't want to be holding up a Cava bag to a Trump full of cash, with fake cash to a
For
Trump,
example, your fake
to a
Trump,
Trump costume or Trump face. I don't have any fucks to give. I don't know how else to say it. And it's I mean, that's what I meant about it, liberating. It's I fine. If you don't like what I have to say, that's fine. That's fine. I don't know how to describe it. I don't give a shit. I mean, I'm going to say what I'm going to say. I have an advantage that a lot of people don't have, right? I don't want anything, right? I don't need anything. I, I had a career. I'm old, right? I don't have, I spent 30 years at a law firm. I have enough money to retire comfortably. I mean, I really should be skiing or playing the guitar somewhere. Um, but but this is what I've chosen to do because I can't help myself. I can't help it.
And one of the places where I think you've done, I mean, I think you've done enormous good in calling out Donald Trump for what he is and actually moving the needle. Like you have moved the national discourse and the comfortable range, the Overton window, I think by your advocacy.
I'm flattered by that because I can't, that is something I would not describe myself as having done that. I try. I feel like I'm pounding my head against the wall. I've been talking about the guy's psychological disorders now for 6.5, 7 years. And I'm just going to keep saying what I say. I mean, because it's like it doesn't. What's the great thing about saying what you say and you believe what you say is you end up being consistent with yourself, and you don't have to think about new things to say because everything that happens with this guy is like, see, it's just this is more of the same. Like being a trial lawyer, like you have all the evidence and you rest your case, and there it is. It's like no. The evidence keeps coming in. It keeps pouring in. We're not going to close our case because the evidence is going to keep coming in. So I mean, that's where we are.
So, George, the other place where I think you have been very, very effective and really important, and this is a place where honestly I've tried, like I feel like you and I are, I won't say we are the only ones, but we are certainly both banging our heads against the wall, is about
Yes.
big law. Like you and I have been, I think, big law.
Oh, big old
And
God.
I think that you and I are among a handful of lawyers who come from that world. You practiced law, I think you said at Big Law for 30 years. I was at a large law firm for just shy of that before starting my own smaller firm. And, I was surprised. I was less surprised to watch Paul Weiss and the large law firms capitulate. I was more surprised that more partners at those firms didn't leave, that more of the other law firms were not willing to be critical. I mean, I went so far as when the American Bar Association at one point filed a brief. Um, I like called them out. I'm like, why are you making Paul Weiss the victim? Like like these firms that capitulated, they're not the victims. I mean, they may have started as victims. Now they're co-conspirators. Now they're
Co-conspirator,
joint
that's yeah.
ventures. And I feel like this is a place where you have been comfortable speaking out. And I'm wondering, like, in some ways it's easy for me. I'm in Washington, D.C. Most of these law firms are in New York City, but you come out of that legal world. Have you received a chilly reception from your former
No,
big law
not well,
colleagues?
not real. I mean, look, I mean, I clearly have called out some people, including at least one close friend, for doing things that I think are harmful to our country. But I haven't gotten any blowback from that generally from lawyers. In fact, if anything, lawyers are supportive. I mean, because it's sort of like my advocacy generally. I mean, one of the things that I think people like about me is I say stuff they want to say, and lawyers wanted to hear somebody say what I was saying. Just the same way I think people want to hear, people want to hear what. I mean, I think it's sort of the same attraction that people have to the bulwark people. Is like we are putting into words um, what people feel, but they may not have the platform or they may not be positioned economically or career wise or for some other reason to say it. But it'll be interesting because next Wednesday, I'm going to the annual Federal Bar Council Thanksgiving Day lunch. And I don't know if you know anything about the Federal Bar Council,
No.
but
So
the
what is the
Federal
FAR?
Bar Council is sort of the premier lawyers organization in New York City in
Got
terms
it.
of like just socially, and it's supposed to be like a federal bar practitioners, but it's become much more than that. It's a way, it's a connecting place for judges and lawyers, and it really it really connects to large segments of the bar, basically almost the entire bar in a lot of ways. And so it'll be interesting to see. But the reactions I've had in the past have been very positive. But I guess this will be the first time since the attacks on the law firms. But I really do believe, just from having talked to friends in New York who are practicing law in New York, that people were very, very angry at Paul Weiss and very, very angry at these other firms for capitulating, angry at Sullivan and Cromwell for representing Trump in that criminal case. I think there's a lot of very, I mean, I don't think it gets voiced at a lot of cocktail parties, but it's there. And so it's going to be interesting to see when I go up there next week what that's going to be like.
I'll be right back with more of my conversation with George Conway in a moment. But I founded Democracy Docket in 2020 to shine a spotlight on Republican efforts to undermine free and fair elections. And today it is working harder than ever before to hold Donald Trump's feet to the fire. The Democracy Docket team tracks the anti-democratic groups working to undermine free and fair elections, Republican voter suppression tactics, and much, much more. But in order to keep up this important fight, the team needs to keep growing, and for that, it needs your help. Support their work by becoming a premium member now at the link in the description below. Is your sense of the legal establishment that it has found its footing? Is your sense that it has not found its footing, but Donald Trump has moved on to other things? Like, what is your sense of where the large law firms stand today?
Well, I mean, I think in the sense they have found their footing in the sense that they now realize, I think, that capitulating to the administration is not the way to go. First of all, it earns the enmity of other lawyers and other people who support democracy. Secondly, it even pisses off clients. I mean, there are circumstances where clients were very supportive of firms that fought Trump, like your former firm. They had a lot of a positive response from its clients, trying to give it more business. But that's the positive side. And I think, related to that is that I think Trump and Steve Miller have realized that that's it. They're not going to really be able to get any more people to capitulate now, because I think the barricades are up, and now the pressure on people who are capitulating would be too great. The backlash. But the bad news is, and I was talking to Peter Keisler, a very good longtime friend of mine, who started, like you are, doing the Lord's work, and not necessarily for profit. He started this thing called, he and a bunch of lawyers started this thing called the Washington Litigation Group, which is designed to help.
Familiar with it, yeah.
I mean, I went to a fundraiser where I spoke, and I heard some amazing things. It's like $2 million is going to pay for the whole firm. Well, that's like the year in $2 million at a law firm. I mean, is
that the Danish budget at Paul Weiss?
Right, $50,000 to represent someone. I'm listening to these numbers, and I'm just saying, these numbers are insane when you look at what these lawyers could be making and have made in the private sector. And the reason why, though, I mean, then I made that point, and then Peter stood up and made a point that I hadn't really thought deeply about, but is absolutely true, is there's the one of the most pernicious effects of Trump's attacks on the law firms, and an effect that you could basically say made it all worthwhile for him, is that firms have been deterred from litigating against the government.
Absolutely true.
And you've got, Peter was telling stories about how there are law firms that say, well, we're not going to sign pleadings. We'll send you memos that don't have our names on them, and all sorts of ruses to that effect, because people, even if they would not capitulate to Trump in the way that Paul Weiss did and these other firms did, they're not going to put themselves out there leading the charge. So it's a mixed bag. I think it really depends on, you can look at it as half empty and half full, but it's a mixed bag. The attacks were detrimental to the rule of law. They were detrimental to the country. Fortunately, I think it didn't turn out as badly as it started to look like it was going to turn out earlier in the year. And geez, it seems like 3 years ago,
I
like
know,
April
right?
or May, right? I
So
mean, she's
I can personally confirm that one of the things that has gone on behind the scene that is not been, it's not as prominent is that a lot of the major law firms have simply cut back on their willingness to do progressive advocacy pro bono. Like that, remember back in the first Trump administration when there were lawyers lined up at airports. Remember that? Every big firm wanted a photo of their lawyers at the airports. Now you don't hear a single big law firm on it at all
right,
involved in any of these immigration detention
right.
cases. You don't. I mean, I do a lot of work in the redistricting and voting rights space. You don't see big law firms
Yeah,
in these voting cases. Like they just don't want to be on the other side of the Trump administration. They'll do pro bono, but not where it involves taking on Donald Trump. I want to
yeah,
talk to you about, though, a different group of lawyers, and those are the government's lawyers. So
yeah.
we can start with Pam Bondi and her crackerjack team of lawyers. We could talk about now Judge Bove, as well as who's the other guy who's from the New York, who's still in DOJ?
My friend I went on,
Yeah,
who attacked me on Twitter the
yeah,
other
yeah,
day,
yeah.
Todd Blanche.
Todd Blanche.
That
Um,
was the dumbest thing he ever did.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw it.
what do you make of these lawyers who some of whom have pretty good pedigrees? I mean, I think Blanche's pedigree was pretty strong, right? Bove, I think, was also had a pretty
Yeah, they were former, they were former assistant United States attorneys in the Southern District of New York. They had perfectly fine credentials. When you talk to Southern District alumni, they're really shocked, particularly at Blanche. I mean, Bove, nobody really liked Bove. Blanche, they kind of liked, and they didn't think he was bad in any way. And then now he's doing this stuff, threatening judges, and it's just crazy. I don't get it. I think it's just that some people, you know, this is what power does to some people. And because Donald Trump was their ticket to power and to fame and to, be deputy attorney general, that's a career capper for a lot of, would be great for anybody. They basically commit themselves to do his bidding. And that's what he seeks from people. And it continually amazes me that there are people who are willing to sacrifice their dignity and their honor and their integrity, if they ever had it, for that. I just don't know how people look themselves in the mirror every day. I mean, my own personal experience was I could have been on the Second Circuit in the first Trump administration.
absolutely.
I could, if I kept my mouth shut, just nodded appropriately at the right moment, just really just kept my mouth shut. Okay, and kept all my thoughts to myself. I'd be a federal judge right now, ruling against him probably, but but I couldn't do it. I could not. I even told Leonard Leo this once at lunch when he was still talking to me in 2018. I just said, I don't know if I can take a piece of paper from this piece of shit. And meaning in a commission. There's all these stories I've never really told, but you get them. um, yeah, I don't know how people do it, and it is just amazing to me, and that's the thing actually that has come that I find most difficult to accept about Trumpism. I can accept that there are evil men in the world and evil political leaders, and that the kind of person the framers were trying to keep out of government could ultimately be in charge of the government. The willingness of so many people just to roll over and lie and just sacrifice just truth and honor. I can't fathom it. I was watching, I mean, today I was watching this good Christian man, the Speaker of the House, talking about how the Epstein files vote was just a show, something just for show, and it was terrible, and the real culprits were the Democrats. Like, what the fuck was he even talking about? I don't even, I was like, how can you just, it was just like every word in there was just basically a lie. And he's just, like he's just breathing air. I don't know how they do it.
Uh, so Speaking of how
Got
they
me
do it,
started. You got me started, Mark.
no, that's okay. Speaking of how they do it and how Democrats will do it, we are a little less than a year from the midterm elections in 2026. And your name has come up as a potential congressional candidate. And I'm going to ask you about that in a moment. But before I do, because before we get to 2026, we're still in 2025. And you have the distinction of having spent a good portion of your adult life in New York City, where I read that there were mayoral elections, uh, and also
Allegedly, yeah, I heard something about that.
and also a portion of your life, your adult life in New Jersey, in Bergen County, where there was a governor's race. And so I am sure that you were avidly watching probably
Absolutely.
the television commercials. Probably if you live in New York City, you're not used to what happens with the poor people of Iowa and New Hampshire during presidential years, or Michigan and Pennsylvania during presidential years, what they experience. But you got a flavor for that.
Well,
What
I
is
had a trifecta actually because I've in my past I have been a registered voter in New York City for many years, in New
right?
Jersey for a few years, and for a couple of years in Virginia. So
Oh, I did not know. I
it
did
was
not
a
know you had a Virginia.
total trifecta there.
Okay, so
So it was very interesting to me. I have to say.
what do you make of the night? I mean, obviously Democrats won everywhere, but what do you make of it?
Well, I think today in 2025, all politics are national.
Hmm.
We always talk about, people always talk about all politics is local, like that old adage. It's like everything's national now. And people are fed up and God bless them. And I mean, it's a really, really good omen for 2026 and a real boost. That being said, I think we need to be more on guard than ever about
Okay,
attempts to undermine the integrity of our elections because we can't, every time you think, oh, well, what can they do? What can they do? Look at what they've tried to do already. And and you obviously can speak to that better than I can since you actually litigate these cases. But we're going to see some screwy shit next year. I mean, because they're going to be desperate. He's desperate. I mean, as I said earlier, he is old and he is incompetent and he is addled, but he's angrier than ever and more desperate than ever, and that's the most important thing. That's the thing that makes him scary. We just need to ride this momentum and keep standing up to him. And I think the important thing too is, and I think both the No Kings events and the elections show that you can stand up to the guy. And I've been waiting.
yeah,
Courage is contagious, and I think we are starting to see more of it. Even from people who you might think are may not be fully sincere, like a Marjorie Taylor Greene. People are starting to just sort of like, I don't need to sign on to this. I'm not afraid anymore. I mean, look at Massey, right?
right.
I was watching Massey tonight going right back toe to toe with Trump about, the attacks on his late wife and the attacks on his current wife and just saying how terrible that was and how awful Trump was for stop, trying withholding the Epstein files. I mean, it's like a dam bursting and we just have to keep encouraging that. It was sort of funny because like one of the reasons why I started speaking out, and I think I mentioned this on past shows with you, but in 2018 was I naively thought that, given where I was and given the fact that my now ex-wife was in the White House, people would say the things publicly that they were saying privately. And it happened to some extent. I mean, I formed the group that I still am in charge of. It's now Society for the Rule of Law, my group with Peter Keisler, who I mentioned earlier. But was just a handful of people, really, at the time, and then all the Republicans who were willing to go toe to toe with him, they lost or they quit. I thought the kind of day that we are seeing today was going to come earlier. That's what I originally thought. I mean, if you told me in 2018 we'd be talking about Donald Trump in 2025, you and I in particular, I would just say, "Oh my God, how do I get off
So,
this? How do I get off this planet?"
so I want to go back to politics in a second, but I'm just curious, as a litigator and a lawyer and a pretty keen observer of Donald Trump. I assume you think Trump finds a way to not honor this law. In other words, do you think the Epstein files actually get released, or do you think this law is going to be circumvented in some fashion?
Well, look, I mean, it's sort of weird that how this all transpired because we didn't need a law. Okay,
That is true.
he told everybody they could go vote for this, but it's like you could just release these files, dude.
Right.
So why do we actually need a law? The reason why he caved, at least in terms of releasing Republicans, allowing them to vote their consciences, so to speak, on this, was he knew he was going to lose. He knew they were just going to have 100 defections in the House. So he just basically threw in the towel on that. And so it does make you wonder what Plan B is.
Right.
I thought at first we thought Plan B is going to be, oh, they'll never have a vote in the Senate, but which is too much. The dam just burst on him. So I think that because he was so desperate not to produce these things, it's hard for me to imagine that he's just going to go produce these things, even though, he's going to have to sign this thing. That's going to be the most amazing thing. He can't not sign this because it would be even more embarrassing to have send it back and have him lose a veto override. So he's going to sign this thing. It would be too embarrassing for him not to. But I don't. Why was he so adamant about not producing these files in the first place? Now, maybe let's play devil's advocate for a second. Maybe he's been persuaded that the materials produced by the Epstein's estate were basically all the worst items that could possibly have been in the hands of the Justice Department. So the marginal harm to him of producing the Justice Department materials isn't great. I mean, that's possible. Maybe that's part of his thinking, but I really do think it was because he realized he was going to lose by lopsided margins. So what's the play now? He's going to have to sign the law. And I guess what they're going to do, they don't particularly, this is the one case where he wants a law. And he doesn't seem to need a law to do all the illegal things he wants to do and is doing anyway. And the laws that tell him not to do some of the things that he's doing, he just ignores. So, I think it's going to have something to do with, how this plays out is going to have something to do with how they play with the statute and possibly ignore it. And I actually pulled it up just because I'd seen the news that the Senate had approved the bill by unanimous consent. I pulled out the actual text of the bill. Okay, so it lists all the things, like a document request. It lists all the things that they have to produce, everything relating to Epstein, Maxwell, flight logs, individuals, including government officials, named or referenced in the stuff, entities, and known or alleged ties to Epstein's trafficking, blah, 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 blah. And then it says, no record shall be withheld, delayed, or redacted on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity, including to any government official, public figure, or foreign dignitary. Intent. Okay, so far so good. And then we get to permitted withholdings. The Attorney General may withhold or redact the segregable portions of records that, one, contain personally identifiable information of victims, depict or contain child sexual abuse materials as defined by statute. In other words, stuff that you would go to jail for passing around. If it would jeopardize an active federal investigation or ongoing prosecution, provided that such withholding is narrowly tailored. So that is one thing that I think we're going to end up focusing on, because he did this bullshit thing where he's going to say, well, let's investigate Bill Clinton and whoever, all these other people other than himself, for the references in the Epstein file. So maybe they're going to take the position that they're going to withhold a lot of stuff because of an investigation, but that it shouldn't work because it's got to be narrowly tailored according to the statute. And okay, so you're investigating Bill Clinton.
Yep.
Withhold the stuff that refers to Bill Clinton, but that means you still got to produce the stuff that refers to you, asshole. So, that shouldn't work, but they're capable of anything. And then the last one would be there's images of death, physical abuse, or injury. E contains information specifically authorized under criteria established by an executive order. To be kept secret in the interest of national defense or foreign policy. Everything that mentions me
affects foreign
policy and my ability to bomb Caracas, and maybe they'll go there. But then again, there's some other good stuff in this statute that they have to justify every single redaction in the Federal Register and file a report to Congress and basically list anybody who's and they have to list everybody who's named in there other than the victim. So we'll see. I don't know how they're going to play with this. I think that they're going to play games with the redactions and they're going to be slow about it. That's my guess. But the problem that they have is that this cat is way out of the bag. They have so bollocksed themselves up with this that even if they actually did produce everything in unredacted form other than the victims' names, tomorrow people would suspect they're withholding something. They can't be trusted. So I don't know how they turn this into a winning hand. I think if I were evil, and others if I were them, I'd basically say, yeah, we'll mess around with these exclusions and we'll take our time about it, and hopefully something will happen between now and then that will cause this to die down in the natural course of events. That's the only play I can see. I'm not sure that's going to work, but it really depends on what else is out there.
I'm with you. So for people who are watching this as a video, this was recorded as a premium Democracy Docket event. And so we're going to go to some questions from the members who have joined this event. If you want to participate in future events like this, make sure to subscribe to Democracy Docket and to become a premium member. All right.
We should do this every week. This is fun.
Well, you're on. I promise you. If you'll do it every week, I'll do it every week. So while the team gathers some questions for us, I said that I want to take a brief detour from politics, but I now want to go back to politics. It has been rumored, it has been reported that you are considering a run for Congress from New York City. When you do, I want to be the first endorser. So let me know where I can add my name, because we sure as hell need fighters like you in Congress. I'm
honored that you would say that. I'm really
I'm on board, but is this true?
I'm not denying it. I don't have anything really to say publicly about it. This is sort of a semi not so public domain. So I feel a little freer to say something, although I don't really know what I'm going to say other than I'm thinking about it. And
okay.
I have to say, it started out with a conversation with a friend, my friend Molly Jong Fast, who said to me, we were talking about she was down in the dumps on Monday of last week. This idea came to me in the last 7 days, because of the caving on the Affordable Care Act thing and reopening the government. And she felt that the Democratic senators, she was kind of upset at the Democratic senators, including Schumer. And we were talking about, the Democrats do need more fight in them, I think. That said, I love a lot of people who are fighting out there, like my own Congressman, Jamie Raskin. And she said, well, why don't you run? And I said, I like my congressman. Right now I'm sitting in Maryland 8, and I like Jamie Raskin. We need more Jamie Raskins. And she said, well, run in my district. And I'm like, wait. And I'm thinking, okay, she's on the east side. I lived on the east side. I look at the map for the first time since I lived in New York, the new congressional map. It's basically river to river, 14th to 96th Street, and it's like, hey, those that like I know that district. I lived and worked in that district for 3 decades. And, I lived in the district for 20 years. I had a residence in the district for probably like 24, 25 years. I worked in that district for 30 years. And it's an open seat. This is, I thought about it, it's like, okay, this is crazy. But the crazy thing about it
And
is
it's an
it's not
open
so.
seat, just so everyone understands and can
Yeah,
follow.
it's
It's an
Nadler's
open
seat.
seat. Okay. It's Jerry Nadler's district. He's retiring.
I'm starting to think, well, it's not crazy. And I'd run as a Democrat, and that'll put some people off, I think. On the other hand, I think the things that
It'll put off Republicans.
I guess it will. It's not. I don't know. You're right. I guess so. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe some of the. I don't know. There are Democrats out there. You see comments on Blue Sky that like oh well, yes, he got us into this mess. It's like yeah, I you know.
Hey, hey,
Like, if you
George.
don't want to vote
I've
for me
been
for
a,
that
I've been
reason,
a, I,
I get it. I completely
I've
get
been
it.
a Democrat my entire life. I have fought hard for the Democratic Party, and I am proud for anyone who doesn't think George is doing everything he can to help Democrats win control of the House and the Senate and fight Donald Trump.
And the
You can come,
presidency.
and the presidency. You guys can come through me. Okay, tell me that I don't have the
All
judgment
right.
of a Democrat to
Okay,
say
this is
that
going to be.
we need this guy.
This is the first endorsement video of the campaign. Thank you very much, Mark. Um, so where was I? Yeah, I mean, it isn't crazy, and I think there's something. Look, if there's ever going to be, look, I think everything. We all want different things for the government, including Democrats. Democrats, you get 5 Democrats in the room, and they're going to disagree on everything, which is great because it's actually a political party and not a cult. Um, but the thing is, like everything that people want in government or from government, this guy's trashing lawlessly. And that's why everybody has to stick together on this. That's why the differences among us, that we might have otherwise have. I'd like to go back to those times where we're arguing about stuff that is so small compared to whether or not we are bombing innocent, well, not innocent, but murdering people on the high seas and attacking people in cities and people, ICE agents rappelling down on apartment complexes in Chicago and dismantling government agencies without statutory authority and the attacks on judges. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. Like all of these things are absolutely, we have to be united against this stuff if we're ever going to get back to a normal political environment. And the pitch I would make if I run would be basically I'm for 2 things fundamentally. I mean, a bunch of things, but accountability and normalcy. We need to do things to make sure that there's accountability. We cannot have what happened, frankly, in the Biden administration. Now I've read Carol Lenig's and Aaron Davis's book. It's like, no, 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 you cannot let these people go. People who committed crimes need to be held responsible for them, or they need to be called out. I mean, we're going to need some kind of a accounting of it. Maybe it's not everybody should go to jail, but we need an account. We need an accounting of this, like a Truth and Reconciliation Commission of some sort, something like that, because we need to take stock of ourselves. And then the other thing is we need to undo the damage. We need to undo the damage that he has done to the justice. I mean, basically, we have to reconstruct the Justice Department by the time somebody else takes it over, if hopefully not too distant future. And then we have to create new safeguards that are going to make the Watergate safeguards look like child's play. And that's going to require some. That's required. That this is a time for a lawyer who's never been in politics to go into politics. This is lawyering now. Okay, this is what the next 2 years are going to be. There's not going to be much legislating, but I can do legislating. I can read a statute. We just read a statute. But this is about, it's going to be, there are going to be investigations. I mean, I think I'd be a great wingman for Raskin and for Dan Goldman. But again, we'll see. I think there's something to, in this age, we need people who don't have any more F's to give, as I put it earlier. And that's the advantage I have. I'm not going to run for anything else. I'm 62 years old. I'm going to be done soon. And I got a few good years left, and I want to give something back. And it would be kind of cool to give it back um, in a district where, I made my career. I'm going to get misty-eyed about it, but it was like, it's just the center of the greatest city in the world. There's a lot of reasons why it would be kind of cool to do this, and not because I want to engage in self-aggrandizing. I want to fight these mothers. This kind of all of a sudden looks like a way to do it. So I'm taken with the idea. I'm not so arrogant that I think it would be a cakewalk or anything like that. And I mean, there are good people already in the race, and
Look,
I'm not.
this is what I'll say. There are good, very good people in the race. I wish them well, and I hope if you don't run, one of them, goes on. You're a fighter. You will fight as hard or harder than anybody else, and that is what we need right now. Standing up to Donald Trump. I mean, to take it from as someone I have been targeted by Donald Trump. I have been called out by Donald Trump. He's called me a communist. He's said I'm destroying the country. He's tried to intimidate me. He's sued me. In fact, just earlier today, the 11th Circuit heard a court case in which he sued me for racketeering, along with Hillary Clinton and others, that got dismissed at the trial court level. He's appealed to the 11th Circuit. I'm not settling that case. I'm not. I
Good for
wouldn't
you.
settle with Donald Trump for anything. And so we need people like you who are just going to be willing to fight and not be like trying to second guess, like what's the angle or what's the risk. Like you've taken the risks, and so that's to me why I hope you will come back and discuss this. We have time for a couple of questions. One is Pat asks about the Texas redistricting decision and if it has any impact on the redistricting vote in California. I'll answer that really quickly. It should not have any impact on the California redistricting. California's redistricting will go forward, but don't think that this fight is over either in Texas or around the country. Republicans are going to fight us every step of the way, but we're going to fight them back in court as well. And finally, we have a question that I want to end with, which several people in the audience asked. And it goes a little bit to why I said you'd be a great candidate for Congress and a great member of Congress. But I want you to expand it beyond, since not everyone here is going to run for Congress, expand it to kind of like what everyone can do, not just yourself. Um, they ask, we seem to be perpetually on defense, and that sucks. And so, like, how can we get our elected officials? How can we get our leaders? How can we get ourselves? Like, what can we do to be playing offense? Because you, my friend, and I do mean that, you are a good friend. Like, you are always playing offense. So, what's your advice to other
Yeah.
people about how we get ourselves and others onto offense?
Just keep yapping. I mean, just look, I think one of the problems we have that led to Trumpism is that we're too polite in a lot of ways. And we don't want to talk politics at the dinner table. We don't want to, we don't want to talk politics at the water cooler. It's like we're afraid of people fighting. And so I don't want to give offense by saying to somebody that I mean, I'm saying other people that I think Donald Trump is off his rocker. People won't say that. A lot of people, Democrats, not enough Democrats have said that over the years. And so that creates this sort of disadvantage because they're willing to do anything. They're willing to make the very accusations they would complain that you are making about them, even though you're making them that's true and they're making them and they're lying. Um, we just can't be afraid of basically just stating the truth in the bluntest possible way. Donald Trump is a sociopath. Donald Trump is evil. Donald Trump is trying to destroy democracy because he only thinks of himself. These things are all inescapably true. Only a few people will say them. So it's like people don't want to say that. A lot of people, including Democrats, don't want to say that. A lot of people are saying it, more people than ever before, which is great. But I mean, we saw right after the election where everybody was like, "Oh, we can't criticize Trump anymore." We have to let go of that, and there's a way of doing it without. This is a way to actually restore and preserve the civil discourse. Okay, we preserve it by being honest. We preserve it by valuing honesty and integrity and valuing the truth and speaking the truth. And if somebody is lying, you know, it's not impolite. It's not wrong to say this person is lying through his teeth. CEG Speaker Johnson today. The man is lying. If I ever met the guy, I'd walk up to him and say, he's like, did you learn how to do that? Did you have to train yourself to lie like that? I really would. I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't care. I don't care if it offends him. He should be offended. He should look himself in the mirror in the morning and say, why did I do that? Why am I where I'm, why, what, well, how did I become this person? And we have to restore shame in public life. You know, and the only way to do that is for people at every opportunity, whether they're walking down the street, or whether they're at a rally, or whether they're in the voting booth, to basically say what they believe. You know, while being open to truthful and honest differences of opinion. Okay, I don't have problems with truthful and honest discourse. I mean, the problem is that we have so many people who have infected the public discourse with lies.
So you and I have one big agreement and one honest disagreement. Our agreement is we both love dogs. Our disagreement is the dogs we love. So this is Blue, my
I
latest
love him. I love
puppy.
him.
He's a Portuguese water dog, and I
I
know you
love
are a
him.
big Corgis fan, but I
Portuguese
gotta
water
say,
dogs are the sweetest. That's a
he is.
typical, that's a Democrat dog because I know Teddy Kennedy had a Portuguese
That's
water dog.
exactly right.
Remember his
That's
name
where
was
I got the idea
Splash.
from.
His name
That's
was
where.
Splash, which was pretty
That's
funny. I
exactly
remember,
right.
God, it's like the political tree. I'm just showing my age.
All
Uh,
right. So George Conway, thank you for joining
that's
today. Thank
sweet.
you for everything you're doing. And Blue says says goodbye.
All right, a lot of
Bye,
fun.
everyone. Bye, everyone. Thanks.